How do Marines evacuate an embassy? Well, they don't, unless they have to. It's complicated. And when I first started to research this story, I thought of Ospreys and CH-53s and riot control gear and that Samuel L. Jackson movie Rules of Engagement. But believe it or not, U.S. Embassy workers are more likely to travel by bus when being evacuated than be airlifted out by an Osprey. I started looking into this subject because of the two generals crisis in Sudan. Now, as I write this, it appears that the United States evacuated its embassy in Khartoum, and word is still getting out on how this was done. Now, some say an MH-47, some say Ospreys, so consider this to be a general overview on how the U.S. might evacuate an embassy in Africa. Now, regarding the conflict in Sudan, here's the basics. Essentially, there's two Sudanese generals, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan of the Sudanese Army, and General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, or Hemedti, of the RSF, or Rapid Support Forces. The RSF is kind of like a state-sponsored militia, and these two generals are fighting for power. The Army and the RSF joined forces back in 2019 in order to overthrow President Omar al-Bashir. If the RSF sounds familiar, they were formed out of the Janjaweed militia that put down a rebellion in Darfur back in 2013. Well, now the Sudanese army wants the RSF integrated under the army's command structure, and the RSF is not having that. So they're fighting for power, and it's getting dangerous in Sudan. Now, neither side is particularly anti-American, but bullets don't care. In fact, an American was recently killed, just caught in the middle of things. Wrong place, wrong time. Now, the U.S. has a few assets in the region to assist with an evacuation. There's no naval assets in the area right now, but we do have a few bases nearby. To start, there's Marine Fast Companies, or Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Teams, in Rota, Spain, and Bahrain. There's also the Marine Corps Security Augmentation Unit, or MSAU, which is a bunch of Marine Corps security guards that are on standby in Quantico. Special forces may also be called in to enter the country discreetly if they're not already there. And it's starting to look like special forces did play a part in this operation. There's also the ERF, or East Africa Response Force, out of Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti. They're mainly an Army show, currently manned by Task Force Wolfhound of the New York National Guard's 27th Infantry Brigade Combat Team. Incidentally, 15 of those soldiers from New York National Guard recently became American citizens in a naturalization ceremony conducted in Camp Lemonnier, which is pretty awesome. Now, Marines have a long history of guarding American embassies. They're called Marine Security Guards, and they actually focus on guarding the inner parts of the embassy, such as sensitive areas in the chancery where classified information is stored, although they can aid in outside physical security if the need arises. MSGs serve throughout the world to ensure the safety of diplomatic missions which allow the United States to conduct diplomacy abroad in a safe environment. Additionally, MSGs also respond to CBRN, or chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats, and bomb threats as well. Staffing and number of Marines on the ground varies based on the embassy, but it's usually between 10 and 30 Marines led by a gunnery sergeant. Smaller missions may be led by a Marine staff sergeant. Larger missions, such as London or Paris, may be led by a master sergeant. Physical security of the embassy and access control is typically done with private security contractors, usually local nationals that have been background checked, and these are called LGFs, or local guard forces. Many of these LGFs are usually well respected by the Marines. In some failing states, LGFs are more loyal to the embassy than they are to their own government. For a lot of them, it's the best job they'll ever have. Security of the diplomats and the outer perimeter is normally provided by the DSS, or Diplomatic Security Service, who are federal law enforcement officers. This is a very unique job because DSS special agents have to be experts at conducting criminal investigations, counterintelligence, background investigations, and also they provide security details. It's a pretty neat job. The Marine Security Guards actually fall under control of the RSO, or Regional Security Officer, who is a DSS special agent. So this is one of the few areas of the Marines where you're under direct control of a civilian. In fact, the MSG duty is one of the few jobs in the Marine Corps where you're literally detached from the Marines and loaned out to another federal entity. You have a State Department email, medical record, and are under their operational command. Administratively, you're still in the Marines, but you're essentially a deputized law enforcement federal officer serving under the RSO shop. One quick note. Technically, the MSGs fall under the command of the ambassador, and the RSOs are the intermediate supervisors between the detachments and the ambassador, but on a daily basis, they deal with the RSO shop more than the ambassador. Now, generally speaking, as an RSO, your first station is stateside, where you work on cases involving visa fraud. Often, these cases are linked to drug smuggling, human trafficking, and other such international crimes. After 3 years stateside, you can then go overseas to work as an RSO, but you'll generally start off as an assistant RSO or ARSO. You can also serve as an ARSOI, who investigates visa and passport fraud in whatever countries they're posted to. Now, when things start to heat up in a conflict area, embassies have teams of experts in security and logistics that will normally do the emergency arrangements. If the situation gets bad enough, that embassy will first go on authorized departure. This basically states that those at the post may leave if they wish. This is where they start to evacuate non-essential personnel, dependents, and families. If the situation gets worse, the Secretary of State will issue an order departure. Everybody gets out. The RSO will start procedures to secure or destroy certain information. This is usually with the help of the IT staff, but the Marines will be at the center of the efforts to destroy classified material and close up shop. The embassy's electronic systems and services are carefully taken down with the hopes that everybody will come back soon and bring everything back online. Meanwhile, flights are being arranged. The Department of State tries to use commercial flights if available. Next, they use charter commercial flights. Only if those flights aren't available or it's just too unsafe, then they'll use military flights. By now, the RSO and their team have scouted land egress routes, maritime accesses, and landing zones within the vicinity of the embassy to make sure that they can be used if the need arises. Now, in a case like Sudan, it appears that the evacuation was either performed by Chinook helicopters or V-22 Osprey tilt rotors to Ethiopia. In most cases, embassy workers just take charter buses to the nearest airport that's most likely guarded by DSS agents and possibly special forces in diplomatic armored cars. There were also rumors of AC-130 gunships in the air over Khartoum on April 22nd, which is probably a way of telling the Sudanese army and the RSF that they do not want any of this smoke. Now, generally, if the convoy ride to the airport is too dangerous and there's no charter flights out, odds are the U.S. will send Marine V-22 Osprey tilt-rotor helicopters, or if the landing zone is too small, Army Black Hawk or Air Force Pavehawk helicopters to shuttle personnel from the embassy to the airfield. There, C-130 or C-17 transports will be waiting to take them home. The airfield itself will be most likely secured by the IRF out of Camp Lemonnier, although the IRF may also go to the embassy. Workers are then flown by military flight to a safe airport, which in this case might be Germany, Spain, Italy, or Ethiopia. From there, evacuees are placed on commercial carriers for repatriation to the United States. Regular civilian evacuees must pay the government a nominal air ticket fee for repatriation. Personnel on duty don't have to pay that fee. And what happens to the embassy? Well, typically local contract security is hired to watch over the grounds until the embassy can be reopened. I learned a lot while researching this topic, and it is way more complex than that Rules of Engagement movie let on. I wish to thank the following Marine security guards for their outstanding contribution: Staff Sergeant Stephen Daigle, Sergeant Anthony Costanzo, Sergeant Richard Jones, and Corporal Wesley Blackwell. I appreciate your insight, boys. Semper. I also wish to thank a certain naval officer who gave me insight on how repatriation was done. Thank you for that, sir. Special thanks to DA Civilian Benjamin Serbicki on military assisted departure and non-combatant evacuation. I also wish to thank a number of DSS agents who wish to remain anonymous. They shed light on the civilian and law enforcement side of things. I could not have done this without you. And thank you so much for watching.
Hey everyone! New Ryan McBeth t-shirts and hoodies from Bunker Branding are available. I'm going to get the HIMARS shirt. What are you going to get, Donald? The Patriot shirt, because I'm a patriot. It's the best shirt, the biggest shirt. Make 14 tangos great again. What are you going to get, Barack? Let me be clear. I'm going to get a Drone Sweet Drone shirt. What about you, George?
I'm going to get a knife hand shirt because they're weapons of mass destruction. What about you, Billy?
Oh, I'm going to get a landmine marker shirt because my presidency always blew up in my face.
I'll tell you what I'm going to get.
Ronald Reagan, but you're dead.
I came back to tell you that no matter our politics, we're all Americans. And we should buy Ryan's hoodies and t-shirts because they pay for the stock footage and licenses that allow him to make awesome content. So come on down to Bunker Branding and buy a Ryan McBeth t-shirt or I'll start the bombing in 5 minutes.